Facebook famously determined that if a new member invited 10 friends within 14 days, they were hooked for life. So they focused religiously on driving the user experience to this key metric. If you apply this product-based approach to B2B sales, then you can identify those users that are ready to talk. And this method is known as the Product Qualified Lead, or PQL. So if you sell in a freemium, open source, or trial model, then the PQL method is critical to give your sales team visibility into who is ready to talk. So talk to your data team, or better yet, partner with Whaler's team of data scientists to develop a PQL model tailored specifically for your business. You'll be empowered by knowing exactly when a user is ready to convert. To see specific examples, go to getwhaler.com/Andy. That's GETWHALR.com/Andy. And as a bonus, if you sign up to learn more about Whaler and PQLs, then Whaler will send you their optimized 2-page master services contract that you can leverage for your own business free of charge. It's time to accelerate. Hi, this is Andy. Welcome to another edition of Frontline Friday with my regular and very special guest, Bridget Gleason. Now, before we get to the show, Bridget and I have a favor to ask of you. We'd really appreciate it if you took time right now to leave a review for this show on iTunes. And while you're there, click the button, subscribe to Accelerate. Make sure you get Frontline Friday automatically each week. Also, we need to hear from you. More specifically, we need your sales questions. What can we answer for you? What challenges do you have that we can help you with? So go to accelerate.fm/frontline and enter your question there. Each month, we're going to select one listener's question to be the question of the month. And the winner will receive a $50 Amazon gift card. So remember, go to accelerate.fm/frontline to give us your question and maybe win $50. So Bridget, how are you today?
Yes.
Go to your nickname, but I didn't
say Bridget Gleason. I was going to say, oh, hi, Andy Paul. I'm doing great. How have we gotten so formal after 94?
94 episodes. So
94 episodes recorded.
Right. I didn't know if we had worn out your nickname already.
I think we have. Let's
okay.
keep it fresh.
Okay.
Let's keep it fresh.
Maybe every other episode we can.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. I've got to write it on my list as the cartoon, though.
Yeah. Well, I thought you got rid of lists.
You know,
and then they came back. Then they came back with a vengeance, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, seriously, I thought I'd gotten rid of lists too. It's really been 2+ years since I'd done a to-do list. And yeah, about a week ago, I was sitting down. I was like, oh no, it's went past the point of no return on that. I need to start writing something down that wasn't just in my calendar because I was behind. What can I say?
So, Andy, do you think that you will get to a place where, is this temporary? Is it the making of a to-do list temporary?
Yeah, I hope so. So, yes, that's the plan.
Okay.
It's like an inflection point with all these things coming due at the same time with lots of moving pieces. And it's like, yeah, now we're trying to get on some sort of project manager and so on so we can organize ourselves better. But it's, yeah. Sheer overload at this point.
I get it. I keep lists and I'm unapologetic.
What's good?
I don't need to. I know that you work just like you handle things as they come up and they're in your calendar. If they're not in your calendar.
Yeah. Well, there was just too many things in the calendar. Too many small things.
So I feel every day. Yeah. It's hard to, when you put 2-minute assignments in there or whatever.
Yeah, well, in my case, too many, half hour, an hour long segments, assignments. So anyway, yeah. So what's new?
What's new? Well, the quarter ended, and who knows when this will air, but quarter ended. We had a good quarter. So you know what that means for a VP of sales?
That you have about 12 hours of relief.
Exactly. Maybe 12. Luckily, I've got 12.
Well, I was assuming 4 hours of drinking and 8 hours of sleeping, and then back at it.
That's true. And I'm not doing 4 hours of drinking, but some probably do. Or maybe they reverse it. I think some people do 8 hours of drinking and then 4 hours of sleeping.
Yeah, those that work for you who are under the age of 30, yes, that's what they do.
Yeah, probably. But at my ripe old age, God, it's just so nice to have a little breather. So that's That's a big thing. Like you take a deep breath, you enjoy the weekend, you look forward to the next board meeting because you've got good things to say. Like you've got this window, but it's short. It's about 12 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that story
I'm
about
enjoying that.
about the 8 hours of drinking and 4 hours of sleeping reminded me of story back my first management assignment. I had a team of, it sort of varied, sort of 12, 13 young salespeople that were my age, in some cases even older than I was, working for them. We were selling computers, and this was in the Bay Area, and our office is in Oakland, and yeah, obviously right across the bay from San Francisco, which, if you're young and single and footloose and fancy free, the place you want to be. And I had this one guy that worked for me who was a smart guy, tall, athletic looking, good looking guy who, we used to count the number of days he would come into work wearing the same clothes, because literally as soon as work was done, he had to head over to San Francisco and just never go home and come right to work again. I think we had him like 3 or 4 days in a row where he finally, I think, fell asleep at his desk, if I remember correctly, on like the 4th day. But those were the days when you could do those types of things.
Okay, a couple of comments on that. Number
Sure.
one, did anybody ever tell him, hey,
Go home and shower?
this like...
Well, but he was rarely in the office, right? I mean, he'd come in.
But worse than that, so he's out seeing customers in clothes that he's been wearing for 3 days?
Yeah.
Unshowered?
Well, maybe he had a shower. I
Is
don't know. I
his
didn't ask.
hair stick? Okay, that is an unattractive visual that I have right now.
Oh yeah,
I don't know
wasn't great.
You know what? I don't know who you were selling for, but you must have had a very, very strong product that he was able to continue. Okay, because that is not like, there's no dress for success in that.
No, I think he eventually burnt himself out. And
well, of course, yeah. Really?
Okay. Yeah. His tenure on the job was a little short. So
surprise there. Okay, so that would
we had lots of good characters though at that job. I mean, I had somebody who was arrested for passing bad checks. That was always fun to get a call from a police department that wasn't in our city, that wasn't in Oakland. It was several hundred miles away, asking me if I knew this gentleman that worked for me. And I said, yeah, why are you calling? Well, we've got a warrant for his arrest for passing bad checks.
And that doesn't happen anymore because nobody's writing checks.
Nobody's writing checks.
I mean, you're totally dating yourself.
I am dating myself.
Because he like had hacked into somebody's Venmo account. That's what would happen. That would be today.
Yeah, I guess. Somewhat equivalent to that, yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, so you had that as a character, okay.
Yeah, that was another one. I had another guy that he used to do this with a colleague of mine, a woman who was sales manager in the office as well. Is when he worked for her is like they'd go on sales calls together, and there's one instance where they were in Vallejo, and our office was in Oakland. So yeah, that's what, 40 miles roughly from our office. And he drove, as the sales manager always had the salesperson drive, and they're meeting with a customer as a deal that sort of looked like it was going to close. And this guy stands up in the middle of the meeting and says, I have to go. The sales guy, I have to go. and my colleague looks at him and says, she was shocked, like she just couldn't believe it. Like, what? He goes, yeah, I've got to go.
Well,
and
okay.
Yeah, I mean, he
well, where did he go?
We had no idea. Idea.
And the mystery was never solved.
No. This was another person then who I hadn't hired him. He had been hired by my predecessor, and during my predecessor, I hadn't really done a thorough background check.
Apparently not.
And the guy had forged his transcript basically from college, and it wasn't until more incidents like this leaving in the middle of the meeting sort of occurred once he started. My colleague left, and so I had the whole group working for me, and I started saying, okay, this guy, something's wrong with this guy, and started digging and went into his personnel file with my boss and Yeah, just a fake transcript. We actually called the school and got the real transcript, and yeah, it was incomplete at best. So yeah, I'd never seen somebody that talked their way into a job.
That sounds like quite the sales team. You were definitely.
Oh yeah.
I'm not quite sure who was hiring, but
well, yeah, I inherited all these people, which was sort of the interesting thing. Is and it was we had a new boss that came in that was sort of taking a personal hand in hiring, and yeah, we had some interesting stories. Let's say, I mean, it's sort of things. Back in those days, these companies were hiring hundreds, if not thousands, just like IBM was. Hundreds, if not thousands, of new grads, somewhat indiscriminately trying to say, "Yeah, we'll put them all into our sales training program," and after 6 months, we'll see who washes out and who sticks, and those that stick, we'll go forward with. And as a result, we had some very interesting individuals that worked with us.
Yeah, I was in one of those programs when I worked for Xerox. So we definitely hired a lot of people, and people kind of washed through like that. We didn't have. I'm sure there were stories of people that had forged transcripts and things like that, but not nearly as colorful as the ones that you're describing. Nobody, and I will say too, even in my younger years, okay. Even in my younger years, God, I've just never, I was, especially for work, I was not out partying with the people, like the work people. I've always wanted to have, well, I'm boring also, that's for sure. But I don't know. I never wanted to be in a situation where I'm out and there's, like, even at President's Club or any of these events, that was not my time to go cut loose. I thought I'm with peers, I'm with managers, I'm with directors, I'm with VPs. This is not a time for me to make a fool of myself. So those were not my occasions to go cut loose. Now, having said that, I don't cut loose even when those aren't happening. So that's probably not a great excuse, but
yeah, well,
I did think about that.
Yeah, I saw a lot of bad behavior at President's Club as well. So this company and other companies. I mean, I don't know. People thought they had a license. It's sort of like the office Christmas party, right? I mean, all these weird hookups and so on. It's just like, seriously, what? Just because you're in Hawaii?
So, Andy, it's, I don't mean to derail what you had planned for today, but since we're on the topic, you wonder then, we talk a lot about why people choose to go into sales or not, or why women go into sales or not. What's the reputation? What do salespeople do that help or hurt their reputations? And when these stories about President's Club and kind of the drinking and cutting loose, does that attract people to the profession, or is it a deterrent?
I don't know. It seems like, I don't know. I imagine it still happens to some degree. It's just a function of being young, right? I'm not sure the profession itself.
But I don't hear the same about, like, in a marketing organization or or an engineering organization, that there's that, and maybe because they don't go on club trips, and maybe I don't know, but do you? Maybe it's just me, and I've been in sales, but do you? And I haven't been in engineering, but do you hear the same thing about young people in the engineering group, or product, or marketing, or finance, HR?
Well, certainly when I was much earlier in my career, yeah, in marketing for sure. I worked at Apple relatively early on, back in the early 80s. And it's a pretty wild place. And
just in general.
Right.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's just...
So it's not just our people.
Nah, function of age, people coming into the workplace, meeting up with, when we're new, it was all exciting. And even though I was on the scale, it was pretty boring. But yeah, we're still young. We still did stupid things. But we're still here.
Thank God. Maybe it was wishful thinking. I have two sons that are both software developers. So maybe it's just thinking, nah, they're not doing that. Yeah, they probably are. Just because I was a dork doesn't mean they're a dork. That they're dorks.
Well, I mean, there's all this talk, at least in tech and in the Valley, of this bad boy behavior that's at least at the senior levels is
that's true,
running riot. So you got to think there's some influence that filters its way down. Well,
that's a little bit different. That's bad boy / harassment.
Yeah.
Which is a different thing than everybody's going out and partying. I think the harassment is a very separate.
Yeah, but I'm willing to bet that in addition to the harassment, some of those other pieces of the puzzle are there as well.
That's I would imagine that's the case.
Yeah. So. Yeah. All right. How do we get to that? Yeah, it was sort of a sobering week. Yeah, last week with several. Senior investors and so on being, outed and forced to resign because, abominable behavior towards women.
We've talked about that on our sales team, and my sales team now is primarily comprised of young men, and there was a comment made, and it wasn't a negative comment, but there was a comment made about, we need just more women in the office. Let's make sure, our office manager, when we get an office manager, let's make sure,
And how did you react to that?
How do you think? Not calm, not mildly.
Right.
And I said, we've got to get out of these stereotypes that we assume that that's the role or that's the position, and that's not harassment. But God, sometimes I think and again we talk about it. If they were sitting here in the room listening to this, we have a bro-y culture, and I said, we have to be careful, and we were talking about this as a team, that we don't make these assumptions, like these stereotypes, that we don't make these assumptions, and that we don't let things get out of hand, just that they can continue to escalate and people think they're funny. And the next thing you know, you've gotten yourself into a culture and a situation where there is harassment and there are issues, and it's a place where women don't feel safe or comfortable. And it's this, I think oftentimes, Andy, it's the frogs in a boiling pot. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, I've heard it, but why don't you make sure I understand? Yes.
Well, if you put frogs in boiling water, they'll jump out immediately. But if it's in warm, tepid water and you just turn up the heat, they'll boil to death. And so it's often that analogy is used to when behaviors start and seem more benign, but then it just keeps getting dialed up, and especially kind of a group and crowd mentality, that it can get to a place where it's boiling hot water. So I just said we just have to be careful that we don't let's pay attention to these stereotypes that we have and also really work against them, because we don't want to be that place. And so it was funny today, one of our customer success managers brought in for lunch. He had made this beautiful chocolate silk pie and brought it in. And the sales reps on my team were saying, Bridget, look, see, we're not all about the stereotypes. Because I had made a comment, what? Next thing you know, you're going to be wanting me to come in and bake stuff for you guys. And I'm not baking. And so it was interesting that the following week, there was a young man from the customer success team that had baked and brought it in. And I guess I appreciate, Andy, that we're having these really honest conversations and about, and even the harassment. we had a new rep, and there was a dinner, and our CEO was in town. And two of the other reps were giving him a hard time. I'm so used to it, which is not a good statement on myself. And the CEO said to me after, he said, is everything okay? Like, I don't think, I'll protect the names. I won't use his names to protect the innocent. Charles, do you think Charles is okay? They were kind of kidding him a lot. And I said, no, he's fine. But then the next day I asked, I said, how was that? That was that too much? And he said, yeah, it actually, it really made me mad. And at the same time, though, the two that were kind of kidding around, they were thinking about it also. And we all talked about it, the four of us, so that the two that were a little bit like, let's call it bro-y, but went too far. And we all talked about it, all four of us. And I think I want us to guard against it. And none of them, they didn't realize they had gotten out of hand. But again, I think if these things aren't called out, then, and we're not self-aware, and we're not constantly on guard, I think that's how you end up having boiled frogs.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just laugh at the boiled frogs, but you're absolutely right, because one of the things that was most shocking about, and yeah, not that I'm naive about these things at all, but is that in this day and age is how people knew about this bad behavior and let it persist for so long. Partners, managing partners in these firms, colleagues, they knew what was going on.
Right.
And I think it speaks to that point that what happens is, if you don't address them, we normalize the behaviors.
Exactly.
And that is the problem, right? So, in the case of these guys harassing these women, it was becoming normalized, even though, people that even if they didn't know the specifics, they knew something was going on, didn't call them on it, didn't force the issue. Because why? Because they thought this person, added some value that outweighed the value of this other person's, dignity and so on. And that's always the wrong choice to make.
Well, and I think that's really true. And I appreciated that our CEO made a comment, and it wasn't it was a question. It was a curiosity, and that he was aware enough that he was observing this interaction and called it out and just said, did that seem okay? And for me too, that this had become normalized to me. It's like, oh my God, these guys kid around all the time. And I'm not in the same area that they are, but still normalized enough that I didn't pay attention. And God, I'm also appreciative that we do have a culture that, this is a great thing about an Israeli culture that has been a big plus for logs.io, is we bring stuff up, we talk about stuff. Super transparent, and just, you got to speak up, and we encourage it and we allow it. And I think hopefully that will help to safeguard against normalizing something that, again, it seems innocuous at first, and it can just escalate, and then you get some issues like we've read about recently.
Yeah, and it's we are people after all. So, and you'd like to think that with all the focus that's been on this, especially in an industry that, on the surface at least, is so progressive, as the tech business, you tend to forget, I said, we are dealing with people, and people aren't as self-aware, and people aren't above taking advantage of other people. And as managers, you just have to be very sensitive to it, as you are, to say, we need to nip this in the bud and talk about it before it becomes a really big thing.
Right. And what we talked about also is we don't want to be that company. And like, even the two that were, let's call it harassing, I can't wait for them to listen to this. That's not who they want to be either.
Yeah.
And that's not the culture that we want. And even for them, it had become sort of normalized between them. And we talk about that when we're looking to interview new people. And I said, listen, guys, we have to be careful also that we're not cliquey, that you let other people in, that you can also accommodate different styles of people. We need to welcome diversity, and we need to pay attention to different people's work styles and sensitivities, that this is going to be important for us as we grow as a company. We need the diversity. And so everybody's not going to take to that, even though you guys have all figured it out and everybody's happy. But it's just something we've got to keep talking about.
Yeah, and I think you have the dynamic going on of a newer organization. People sort of first people in sort of set the tone. And you'll go through, and you've witnessed this at other places, is, various stages as other personalities come to the fore. But yeah, it's part of it's about making people feel comfortable that they can make their own voice heard.
Right. And giving people a voice. Yeah, super important.
So, yeah, I mean, because, everybody, you're going to get contributions from a lot of different places. And one of the essential skills, we've talked about this, excuse me, going forward, certainly in the, the information age and the age of the customer, however we want to structure it, is, relationships, teamwork, collaboration. I mean, these are, if you can't master these skills, there's not going to be any room for you in sales.
Absolutely. And I love that those skills are becoming more and more important. I just think as humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's, and I think we touched on this a little bit in the last episode before, is that one of the trends as we see as we welcome, quote unquote, welcome more technology into our lives, into our work lives, is we need to be able to adapt that technology to help us achieve what we need to achieve. But there's certain things that it's not set up to do. And, building relationships and connecting and collaborating in a human way, that's, at least for the foreseeable future, that's still the province of humans. And so, we need to master those skills. And, our success at mastering those skills starts in part with how we treat other people.
Right.
Not just our customers, but the people we work with and even people outside of work. I was reading something last night that some research is being done that's establishing a correlation between how people treat people outside of work with the way they treat people at work. And that, people I think there's this, I don't want to say a fiction, but, this perception on the part of people that say, I'm one way at work and I'm different outside of work.
Huh. And
I hear it all the time, right? I mean,
I know, I do too, and I've never bought it.
Yeah, I'd never really bought it either. But people think, I go into work, I'm on, I'm in sales, I'm on stage when I'm with customers, so I'm a different persona. And this research is basically saying, based on what we can tell, no, there's continuity, consistency. It's just the way we're wired as humans. We have to be consistent this way. And so you're just fooling yourself. You think I can be nice at home and be a jerk at work.
I don't buy it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And as this research found, it doesn't work that way. So you have to sort of think, as if people are behaving badly at work, they're probably a bad actor in other places in their life as well.
Yeah, that's definitely been my experience.
Yeah. Well, on a future show, we're going to talk about.
We'll cover that. Yes.
Worst bosses, worst colleagues. Stories about things to avoid, or situations to avoid, or things we've experienced that you can learn from. So we've sort of run into the end of the show.
Andy, Paul, thank you.
Oh, both names.
I know you, because you used both my names to start. So I decided it's good to be more formal now. We've moved to a sense of formality. Ms. Gleason for you.
Ms. Gleason. It was Captain Fantastic. Well, I've got two first names. Either one works.
I know. Paul Andy.
Gleason.
Bridget.
I've heard Gleason as a first name on occasion.
Really?
Yeah, I think. I'm trying to remember somebody, but it's not very frequent. No. And Bridget as a last name. I don't think I've ever heard that.
No. See, mine's pretty well defined.
All right. Well, it's been good. So, as always, thanks for joining me.
As always.
And friends, thank you for joining us today. We were a little unstructured, but hopefully enjoyed it as well. And make sure you come back and join us again next Friday. Until then, this is Andy Paul.
And Bridget Gleason.
See how formal we are. We'll talk to you then.
All right. Take care.